Okay, there we go. Now let me share screen. First of all, I kind of like this whole share screen idea because it means that we've got a record in the recording of all the words we say, if you know what I mean, which is quite good. So let's look at this word repartee here, which I just mentioned in passing as we were starting. Repartee. Had you heard of this word, Anjali, or not?
No, sir, but I was actually wondering, like, it's the root word of rapper, like rappo or
No.
and this both are same.
It's nothing to do with rapport. Repartee is a completely different word. Yeah.
No, I'm not aware about this. Then.
Yeah, repartee. So somebody new's just joining there. I'll let her join and then I'll speak to her. Yeah, so first of all, are we all clear in the meaning of what repartee means? Let me get it pronounced here so you can hear it pronounced.
Repartee.
Hear that? Repartee.
Repartee.
So at the party, there was great repartee, yeah, between the participants. I'll say hi to Lenny, who's joined first time. I don't know Lenny's face. Can you hear us, Lenny? No, she's got audio problems. Right. So repartee. So there was great repartee. In this class, we have great repartee. Mona and I have great repartee, right? Because I know her really well. So we have good repartee, which just means we can make comments back and forth. Make sense? Yeah, everyone understand that? So it's conversation, right? But the point about it is it's quick-witted conversation. We are deliberately poking a little fun at each other, yeah? And this is a sign of warmth, yeah? Personal warmth. And we also talk about this as banter. See that? See, it's a similar banter, right? So we have good banter. Yeah. So let me type in sentences with repartee. Their repartee set the tone for the evening. See that? The repartee set the tone for the evening. So in other words, that's a very positive statement. So the warm, friendly atmosphere, which was conveyed, set the tone for the evening. Yeah. Dean ignored her repartee. So somebody is trying to make witty comments, but this guy, Dean, he isn't, we would say he's not biting. He's not engaging. She was enjoying the challenge and their repartee. So as you guys get more familiar with English and get comfortable with English and comfortable with me and comfortable with each other, then you can do some repartee, yeah? So you can make fun of me and I won't be offended. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we do that already.
You do that already, yeah. You do, because you're quite comfortable with English, right? But anyone who's like brand new in the language won't do that because they're just struggling to understand the basics, yeah? His agile mind, quick wit, and ready repartee made him something of a favorite of the media. Yeah, so people enjoy it when there is good, witty comments coming back and forth. Yeah, it's a kind of a demonstration of intelligence, but some people have a particular gift for it. You know, they just know exactly what to say and how to make other people laugh, and it's often used if somebody's going to give a big speech, let's say they're going to give a big 10-minute or say a half an hour formal speech, they may well begin by some informal comments, if you know what I mean. Yeah. I think I'm even concerned that that person, Lenny, who I think is Sylvia Gonzalez, is having trouble connecting. I'm sure it's her. Okay, so we'll move on now. Is everyone comfortable with repartee? Yeah, I'm getting a thumbs up from Elham. So that's the key thing. Now, here's another word I'd like you to look at, right? It's really hard to spell. I always struggle to spell it. It's manoeuvre. I'll look at the spelling in a minute. I'm deliberately not typing it because I want to ask you some questions about it. First of all, does anybody know what this word means already? Maneuver, and also the related word maneuvers, right, which has quite a lot of significance, particularly in a military context. So does anybody know what a maneuver is? What's a maneuver? What does maneuver mean?
I think maneuver means kind of movements that or actions that we do to show something to other people. Yeah.
You're sort of you're really warm. But you're not.
I have heard this word also.
Yeah.
Actually, somewhere when I was watching a space, documentary or something, I have heard it's there actually, but I'm not able to recall that. What does it mean?
Yeah. So the important thing is to be able to distinguish between maneuver and movement, right? So maneuver is like a movement, but maneuver is movement with skill. That's the key thing. If you had have said, Elham, skill, then, so for example, maneuvering a motorcycle requires skill. You see that?
Yeah, I see.
Particularly slow speed maneuvers. It's quite easy to ride a motorcycle fast because it kind of balances itself. You just got to hang on, right? But if you want to try to go at walking pace, it's really hard. It's just like riding a bike, until you're going on a bicycle, you've got no balance, right? If you ever see anybody, you might, I don't know if you have this in your countries, but you see this, some people have this skill, they can come up to a junction and stop on a bicycle and keep their feet on the pedals and balance. Have you seen that? Requires a lot of skill to do that, right? A lot of skill. And they're doing it with their body as opposed to with the steering wheel or with the handlebars, I mean, so that's what a maneuver is. Movement with skill. And if it's in the plural, maneuvers, that word, it could be in any context, but it is most often used to describe military movements, right? So something like the Chinese government were concerned about American military maneuvers in the China Sea, right? And that could be a headline, right? So military maneuvers are, it's not so much a reference to skill now as it would be on an individual, but when you talk about military, you're talking about they've got another word that's often used there is exercises. they're doing exercises, right? So it's not a battle, but they're maybe simulating it. Now, what I'll do is I'll come back to that word. So look at how it's spelled. Manoeuvre. O-E-U. 3 vowels in line. See that? It's really hard to remember how to pronounce it. I'll spell it. It's easy to say, maneuver. So it's a movement or a series of moves requiring skill and care. Example, snowboarders perform daring maneuvers on precipitous slopes. Everybody knows what a slope is, yeah? Yeah?
Yeah.
But what's a precipitous slope?
I don't know
Is
the
it,
other one.
is it wet?
No. Well, it's really weird that I'm saying no, because precipitation is rain. It's another word for rain. You maybe were thinking that. And that's, so that's a very good guess. But it doesn't mean that in this context. Precipitous slope means like this. It's not a gentle slope. It's a precipitous slope. It's
Sharp.
like a precipice describes exactly vertical. So El Capitan, for example, from America, is one of the most famous precipices in the world. And so a precipitous slope would be a slope that is nearly like a precipice. A precipice is like when you go to a cliff edge and you're looking over and you look straight down. That's what a precipice is. And precipitous means like a precipice, but not quite like that. So let's look up these other words then. A very steep rock face or cliff, especially a tall one. Okay, that's a precipice. This word can often be used metaphorically. You know, it's like the work situation got so bad, it's just like I just ended up going off a precipice, right? So it suddenly got, boom, you know, the end of the road. So that's what precipice is. And then precipitous means dangerously high or steep. And here's how this is used metaphorically, right? Of an action done suddenly without careful consideration, precipitous intervention. So, you know, you suddenly got involved in something, and you know, and you can often use it where you're trying to, a bit like initiate, the word initiate, right? I might do something to initiate, to cause something to start, right? And you could also say, instead of initiate, precipitate, right? So, so the politician was stirring up the crowd, and he was so vehement, he precipitated a riot. So you remember what happened almost exactly a year ago when President Trump was stirring up the crowds in Washington, and then they went and they marched on the Capitol. Do you remember that? It was in the news programs all around the world. Do you remember that? You guys follow the American news?
I think, are you talking about the recent, like when he left the president chair? After that, something happened. Are you talking about that?
It was just, he was still president, right? But it was in the dying days of his office. And I think it was November or December. And he stirred up the crowd, the people, all his supporters, and they then marched on the Capitol, and they, raided the building, and there was, I think there was actually people killed in it.
Are you
Yes, I
talking
remember
about
that.
their invasion to the Senate building?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Senate is another word for the Capitol, right? It's, when I say capital, I'm using this word, capital, not capital, right? Capital. So
I didn't know this word.
Yeah. So the United States Capitol, this is what it looks like here. The picture on the right. Yeah. This white building, often called the Capitol. So Capitol, it sounds similar, but it's got an OL rather than an AL, the Capitol. But it is the meeting place of the United States Congress and the seat of the legislative branch of the federal government, right? So that's what they marched on.
Yeah, and in India and in Britain, I think we use parliament for the same.
Yeah. Now, so as not to get off the topic, so my point was, I was using that as an example that the speech of President Trump precipitated effectively a riot. Now, you see how I'm using that term there. It precipitated, he made it happen. It's like, it's coming from the idea of there are certain conditions in the atmosphere that cause the precipitation, that cause rain. Yes. So the official term for rain is precipitation. And so there are certain conditions, temperature, and I don't know. But there are certain conditions that when they're met causes the clouds to precipitate, right? But sometimes those conditions are not met and you just see the clouds passing over, right? I don't know what it is about Scotland, but it basically rains every day here. Anyway, so taking that example then into any other walk of life, we say precipitate to indicate something is starting. Okay, so everybody good with that? Yeah. Right. Now, so, right, here's another word that you won't know. I know you won't know because I barely know this word. It's the word cant. And it's not the word CAN''T. If you come across CAN'', it's short for I could not, right? Cannot. It's short for cannot. Yeah, everyone knows that. Yeah. So I'm sorry, I can't come to your party tomorrow night, right? It means I cannot. Now, but when we're just speaking verbally, you never say I cannot. You could use it for emphasis. Oh, I'm sorry, Anjali, I cannot come. Right? It's like emphasizing it. It's like in speech, almost like underlining it. But normally in speech, verbalizing, you don't say cannot, you say can't, for sure, right? However, when you're writing something, an email or a document, a letter, you don't say can't writing, you say cannot. He cannot come.
I mean, I use can't also.
You shouldn't, unless you're quoting somebody speaking, right? So if you're quoting somebody speaking, you could say, and Anjali said, I can't come. See? So Anjali said that. And I can write it if I'm putting it in quotation marks to say she said that. Right? That's proper usage. But
So
see,
I have one question here. Even if we are having a conversation over chat with our friends, like in informal conversation also, we should not use can't.
yeah, in informal conversation, formal or informal, if we are verbalizing, if we're just speaking, we can say can't.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah. But when you're writing, you shouldn't use that. Okay. Now, I think I saw briefly Mona's hand up there. Did I answer your question in passing, or we still got a question, Mona?
Teacher, excuse me, I didn't understand that you told that in writing we should use cannot, yes?
Correct.
Uh,
Specific, particularly in formal writing.
okay.
Um,
Just informal, yes?
Not informal.
No, I mean
Formal.
informal.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, for example, in the context of legal documents, you're in the legal world, so you would be writing formal documents all day long.
Yes.
But when you're chatting about lunch, that's informal with a colleague. Somebody might say, "We're heading out to the cafe for lunch. Do you want to come?" And you might say, "No, I can't come." You don't need to say "I cannot" there because it's informal. You would say, "I cannot come because I need to finish this task today. It's urgent."
Thank you.
Okay. Right. Now for the new word. This is an advanced word. Cant. So cant without the apostrophe. Nothing to do with cannot, nothing to do with cant, C-A-N', right? This is hypocritical and sanctimonious talk, typically of a moral, religious, or political nature. He had no time for the cant of the priests about sin. Language specific to a particular group or profession and regarded with disparagement. Thieves cant, right? If they'd stop canting about honest work, they might get somewhere. So the key thing is it's hypocritical and sanctimonious. So hypocritical is where somebody says something, but what they say and the way that they live are at disparity. Do you remember we talked about walking the walking and talking the talk a few weeks ago? It's a bit like that. So a hypocrite is somebody who doesn't live the way they say people should live, right? There's a mismatch. That's a hypocrite. And sanctimonious is someone who, like in a moral sense, looks down on others, right? I am holier than thou, right? That is that's being sanctimonious. And so somebody who exhibits that kind of talk, that's called cant. This word is extremely rare and is known by no one except Alan's English.
So, yeah, a sanctimonious talk is something like a negative thing, right? We can't, if we use that, it's a...
Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's negative, yeah. Another word in this area is Pharisaical, right? Pharisaical. Probably good to explain what a Pharisee is. Do you know what a Pharisee is? No?
No, sir.
So the Pharisee comes as characters mentioned in the Bible, right? And they were known for being self-righteous. That's the key thing about them, right? So they thought they were super righteous and would only really mix among themselves. They wouldn't mix with other people because they thought that other people weren't as holy as they were. That is what a Pharisee is, right? And that has made its way into to create this term, Pharisaical, right? Which means marked by hypocritical, censorious self-righteousness. Now that's a mouthful, but the concept is fairly clear. If somebody says, well, I won't even speak to that person, you know, because I am better than them, that is being self-righteous, right? Self-righteous. So somebody has a high opinion of themselves and their own conduct, okay, more than somebody else, to the extent that they won't befriend somebody and they won't even have any dealings with that other person, right? That's what being self-righteous means. Censorious is where you would censor them. You know, you think, you wouldn't have anything to do with somebody. You censor them, right? That's what censorious is. And hypocritical, we've talked about. Hypocritical is where somebody's life and speech are not in line. So somebody might say, well, let's use a really stupid, straight example, but somebody might say, I don't believe in divorce. And then we discover out later on that they're divorced, right? So that person would be described as a hypocrite and his speech is hypocritical. Yes, Elham.
I want to ask, is there any difference between a hypocritic and a two-faced person and a double-faced person?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Thank you.
Top marks for the question.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you know what I'm going to say, they're in the same milieu, right? They're in the same milieu. Not exactly the same though. So two-faced, hi Sid, good to see you, man. Two-faced means somebody who says something to one person and says something quite different to another, right? So if I said something to you and then I said something else to Anjali that was quite different from that, right? Presented a different side of myself or a different line, I was not consistent. If I'm not consistent, and then you two women got together and had a chat and said, well, Alan said this to me. Oh, really? He said this to me. He said this. Well, and these things are in contradiction. Your reaction would be, he is two-faced. Two-faced. Right? So that's not the same as being hypocritical. Right? Hypocritical is where somebody says something and it's not in line with their conduct generally. It doesn't have to involve multiple people. So I'm really glad you brought this up though. It's not two-faced, right? It's two-faced. Insincere and deceitful. I soon learned that he was two-faced. Like here's an example, right? So if I said to you, Elham, I don't drink, right? I'm teetotal. I don't touch it, right? And then I went out one evening with Anjali and drunk and got alcohol and got drunk. You see, that's deceitful and it's insincere. And I could be described as two-faced if I exhibited that behavior.
I see.
You could also say I'm a hypocrite as well in that particular instance. But two-faced, it's not saying it here, but you can take it from me, right? Two-faced normally comes up when somebody comes over differently to different people. You know, I'm coming over one way to put one person, I'm coming over another way deliberately. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a lovely term for somebody who's the opposite of that, and we say that they're single, not single as in not married, but single as in genuine. Yeah. A really, really good word for this is ingenuous. That's a really good word for that, right? Ingenuous. And the opposite is disingenuous, okay? Ingenuous. I might have done that word before. Innocent and unsuspecting, right? Somebody like a child. You know the way children in general are not sophisticated, right? And they tell you what they think, you know, like they might tell you lies, but in general, a child is very innocent, right? They don't think about, okay, what answer am I going to give here? And then decide what answer to give. Like adults do that, right? And there's a term I remember reading about this kind of behavior where somebody said about somebody else that they, you know, like politicians are really guilty of this, right? Is that in every situation, they're analyzing what to say and then they decide what answer is. It's not like they ever tell you what they really think or that they ever tell the truth. You know, I mean, some might, but it's extremely rare. Did you know the word politician means deceiver? Okay, so that was two-faced. And then the other one you asked me about was?
Double-faced.
Double-faced. Yeah, double-faced is just another way of saying two-faced. We say double-minded, right? We say two-faced and we say double-minded.
Uh-huh.
And there it's not related, right? Double-minded means you're not sure what you think, right? Let's look this up. Wavering in mind, undecided, vacillating, great word, vacillate, right? Alan, are you going to go into politics? I'm not sure, I'm vacillating. Okay, that explains the issues there. So to vacillate is to like alternate between two opposites, right?
Yeah.
Are you going to go in for a swim tomorrow? I don't know. I'm vacillating. You know, it's like the same as saying as I'm undecided, right? You wouldn't vacillating is a fairly sophisticated word. You wouldn't typically use it in things like, are you going for a swim? You would use the word vacillate in connection with big decisions that are important. Alan, are you going to change your job? I don't know. I'm vacillating about that, right? I've been employed where I am now for 10 years, long time. It's fairly secure. But at the same time, I do like new challenges. So I'm vacillating about it, which means I'm thinking about it. And I'm also, it's not that I'm just thinking about it, it's like I'm jumping back and forth between going to do it or not. Yeah.
And is it equal to doubt? Having doubt about?
it's similar. It's in the same milieu, but it doesn't mean the same thing, right? Because to have doubts is just to have some reservations, right? In the general thing, I can have if I have any reservation about a decision, you would say I have doubts, right? I have doubts, and I could have doubts about my job. I could have doubts about. You can also have doubts about a character. Oh, I've got doubts about her. You know, she said a few things. I'm not too sure if I trust that person, right? So that's what having doubts about a person would mean. But in general, you have doubts about. Let's look it up, right? Feeling of uncertainty, lack of conviction. So is the guy guilty? Somebody says, absolutely. Somebody else says, I have my doubts. I am not convinced. And since I'm on this jury, I'm not going to convict them. I don't think there's enough evidence to convict them. I have doubts. Now, you can see what that means, right? Hopefully that's really super clear. And that's quite different from vacillating.
Yeah, I see that.
You see that? Because
Yeah.
I wouldn't be about to get this guy hanged or let him go free. I wouldn't be jumping back and forth between those two things, right?
Yep.
You know, I would vote for somebody to get hanged if I knew they were a murderer and they'd killed 10 people, right? And I was absolutely sure, and they'd confessed, let's say, right? So it's beyond any doubt, right?
Yeah, I got that. There's a
Beyond any
nuance.
doubt, right? But people typically vacillate about decisions referring to themselves, and they're not sure what to do. Sometimes they might say they're torn, like a piece of paper. You would tear a piece of paper. And if I say I am torn, it means, oh, I'm being stretched two different ways and I don't know what to do. I am torn.
Yeah, and this is the same as vacillating.
Yeah.
I see.
If you're torn between two or more things, you cannot decide which to choose. And so you feel anxious and troubled. Rob is torn between becoming a doctor and a career in athletics. I could help him choose. Go and be a doctor, man. Stop messing about with something physical. Not that exercising isn't important. I'm a big believer in it, but come on, you know. But Rob is so good at running that he thinks he'll become a superstar, right? But I would say to him, but Rob, you're only going to be doing that for 10, 15 years, maybe 20 at the most. Then what are you going to do? Whereas if you become a doctor, you can help other people for 40, 50 years of your life. So torn. So torn and vacillate are similar. Okay, that all came out of nowhere, right?
Yeah, thank you.
Right. So let me go back to my word list and see what I was going to talk about today. So we've done maneuver. We've done that to death. We touched very briefly on crestfallen. What does crestfallen mean? Anyone? Good, good. I like to come up with words and expressions that people don't know. I figured this would be you.
Crest. Okay, let me guess it. I know the word crest. So it is basically the bottommost, I could say the bottommost level where people can go to. So maybe someone has faced the failure and now they can say that now I can like rise from here and there is no, looking back. So maybe.
So not
something-
exactly, my dear, right? Not exactly, but you're very, very warm, right? You're definitely a good guess, right? For a pure guess, that was really good. But it's not right. So I want you to forget about everything you said, right? Crestfallen is the feeling that you have when you've just been disappointed. You've just been let down and you suddenly feel, oh, right? So if Alan sent out a note at 5 to 4 to say, sorry, no class today, you would all be crestfallen. Right? Right. Sad and disappointed. You would all be sad and disappointed. He came back empty-handed and crestfallen. And so crestfallen, if you're suddenly made sad, you physically would do this with your head, right? Your head would be down, wouldn't it? Yeah. So we lost somebody there. Who did we lose? Angeline. We've lost Angeline. So probably come back. Yeah. So crestfallen, it describes that initial feeling, right? That initial feeling of disappointment, right? So Alan was invited into his boss's office and he was really expecting a promotion, but he didn't get it. The promotion went to his colleague, Elham. And so Alan is personally crestfallen, although he's very pleased for Elham. Okay? Crestfallen. That's a good word. Great word. Yeah?
Yes. I can just make up a sentence right now.
Okay, then. Go on.
Yeah.
Go on.
Yes. So, into the prize distribution ceremony, Anjali was crestfallen when Sudhanshu got the prize, which she thought that she might get.
Exactly. You got it, man. You're a superstar.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, I did say something early on, I think maybe before I put the camera on. I won't type it out because sometimes the browser just tells you what it means before I finish typing it. So I'm not going to say it. But I did say a glutton for punishment. I was talking about the girl from Mexico, do you remember? Who joined at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I said she was a glutton for punishment. Now, that's a very common expression. So I've given you some expressions that are kind of a bit rare. If you know them, you'll be special. You're all special, right?
You had told this expression in first sessions.
Did I?
Yeah.
Remind me what it means then.
If I remember correctly, it was like the person is looking for some kind of punishment, doing something wrong, deserving a punishment.
No. You know, you're sort of getting there, but that's not what it means or how we use it. Because nobody looks for punishment, right? Nobody wants to be punished, right? No one's going to go to the teacher. When I was at school, they used to have a cane, right? And they used to whip your hand like that to tell it, you know, and sometimes you get double cane, right? Both hands. It's really agony, right? Stand there, boy. You're getting the cane and you have to stand there like that and they whip your hand, you know? And that was your punishment for shouting in the corridor or getting into a fight, right? They don't do that anymore in the UK anyway. But in my day, they did that, right? Now,
I see just a word which actually rhymes with glutton for punishment, which goes like glutton for nourishment, and it's a place in Wolverhampton.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's there right in your search, sir. Third last.
Ah, so it's a place for glutton for nourishment. That's clever, isn't it? Yeah. So what they're doing there is that's an eating place, and they're just reusing the expression there, right? Glutton for punishment. So what glutton for punishment is nobody wants to be punished, right? Because punishment is where you're getting pain, physical harm done to you typically, or it could be just an imprisonment, right? But basically punishment is where your behavior, which has been bad, is being rewarded, right? That's what punishment is. And so if we describe somebody as a glutton for punishment, we're saying they want punishment, right? But what we mean when we say that is we don't mean real punishment, not real punishment. Right? We mean that they want some more of something that is typically hard work, right? So think about it, how I used it, right? I said the girl from Mexico joined the class at 2 a.m. because she's a glutton for punishment. See how I used that? So in other words, I am in a self-deprecating way, I'm describing class because it's hard work. You got to make lots of notes. You got to revise them. You got to put up with somebody with a weird accent talking to you for a whole hour, right? As it's kind of a punishment, right? No, it's not really a punishment, but we often say that about anything that is kind of like work or some kind of effort involved in it, as a glutton for somebody who votes, decides of their own volition to do something a little bit extra. We describe them as a glutton for punishment. Now, a glutton is somebody who overeats, right? Somebody who wants to eat all the time is a glutton. Like a drunkard describes somebody who goes to excess in drinking, is a drunkard, right? And a glutton is the same, but for eating. So somebody, he's a glutton, he's eating all the time, right? So let's look up what it says.
It means
And is it a positive or a negative description?
Yeah, so this is used in an informal context, and it's not really negative, right? It's not really negative, but we only use it in a humorous way, really. A person who's always eager to undertake harder, unpleasant tasks, right? That person is a glutton for punishment, right?
I see.
So the guy across the street gets up at 6 o'clock every morning and he goes running for an hour, real, hail or shine. I'm not describing a real person here. This is completely factitious, right? Fictitious. But let's describe, here's a guy, he gets up at 6 o'clock every morning and he goes for a run, real or jog, real, hail or shine. He is a glutton for punishment. That is a perfect example. Because he is wanting to, he is eager, right? Eager means keen, to undertake hard or unpleasant tasks. So he's doing that. So I would describe him as a glutton for punishment. Now, that's what I want. Let's get some sentences. Someone who habitually takes on burdensome or unpleasant tasks or unreasonable amounts of work. For example, Rose agreed to organize the church fair for the 3rd year in a row. She's a glutton for punishment. Now you see how this is really an accolade. It's really a positive statement about her. She's a glutton for punishment. And this is a perfect example of how it would be used. So it's actually giving her a star. It's saying that she's got a very positive attribute, that she's a glutton for punishment. Because we're using punishment there in the sense of work, and particularly voluntary work, right? She's doing something she doesn't have to do, but she's doing it anyway. This expression originated as glutton for work in the late glutton for work. Interesting. In the late 1800s, punishment being substituted about a century later. Well, I didn't know that. Who knew, as we would say in Scotland? Who knew?
Sir?
Yeah.
Does this can be inferred as putting effort towards your personal growth or improvement.
Yeah, you could, but you would normally use it in an informal context. So I wouldn't say, if I was your teacher in a real school, I wouldn't say Sid Chandra is a glutton for punishment. He works really hard. I wouldn't say that.
Okay.
I would just say he works really hard because he's keen to pass his exams. So the glutton for punishment is often used in an informal sense, like describing that woman just there. She organizes the church fair every year. It's a lot of work to do it, right? So she's a glutton for punishment.
Okay.
So there's really admiration in that for her, really. Let's look at the other examples. Sands was involved in a scandalous for the time romance with the carpenter, and there was rumors she was pregnant with his child. I don't see a glutton for punishment there. Bit confused. I'm really confused. So this is a stupid website. This really bugs me. Like sometimes, like none of these are really good examples. This sentence here has the word punishment in it, right? Okay. Anyway, I think what I'll do is I'll look at a different website for that. Collins Dictionary or Cambridge Dictionary. Let's see how they define it. Someone who seems to enjoy doing something that you consider unpleasant. Now that's a very nice definition. So I made the comment about the woman because I wouldn't want to do that. But, you know, she seems to be able to do it. He's a real glutton for punishment, taking on all the extra work without getting paid for it. Okay. Now, I'm not a glutton for punishment, so I don't want to labor anymore on that word. I'm going for an hour already. Is everyone comfortable with glutton for punishment?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
News at the end.
Now, right. What about this word? Pervasive. Anyone? Anybody know what pervasive means? Okay, good. I like to come up with words that you guys don't know, that I don't think you'll know, or at the edge of your understanding. This is a relatively common word, certainly amongst educated people. Non-educated people wouldn't know what it means, but well, most people would guess what it means. Pervasive, right? And pervasive means.
Let me use a word about your feeling. You taught it one day. It's schadenfreude, I guess.
I'm not really hearing you super well. Just give me that again.
I don't know how to pronounce it, but the spelling is SCHADENFREUDE. Happiness at someone else's misfortune.
Oh, Schadenfreude.
Yeah.
Your Schadenfreude. No, there's nothing to do with that. We'll come back.
But you become happy when we are not aware about the meaning of any word.
All right. No, I don't feel that. I think anybody who feels Schadenfreude, it's like that's pleasure at somebody else's pain, right? That's what that is, right? And I would never feel that. That would be out of my character. I can say that without hypocrisy. I would never feel that, right?
Yeah, I think it's a bit harsh. So I was just trying to be repartee, if I'm using that word
Yeah,
correctly.
okay. Stop showboating.
She's just flexing her vocabs.
Yeah, I know. She knows what I think, so I won't embarrass her with saying anything. Right. So pervasive. Let's look up this word pervasive. Right. I'll tell you my definition, then we'll look up the official definition. Right. Pervasive means everywhere. Right. Something is pervasive. It means it's like, so you could say, somebody might say, what's the situation with the coronavirus in Scotland, Alan? And I could say, you know what, it's pervasive. Now, I haven't heard that word used in the context of the virus, but that would basically mean is that it's absolutely everywhere. The word they would use is a medical word. They would say it's endemic. That's what they would say. But pervasive means everywhere, right? Yeah, in every place, in every situation. That's what pervasive means. Now let's look up an official definition. Right, there you go. Present or noticeable in every part of a thing or place. The influence of Freud is pervasive in her books. So in other words, let's say this is somebody who's a psychologist and they've written some books. Somebody reading those books can tell that Freud has influenced her, right? It's really clear in every book, right? The pervasive smell of diesel, right? So there must be a leak somewhere, and diesel is a very strong smell, and it's a wee bit sickening as well. So it means the smell is everywhere. Reforms are being undermined by the all-pervasive corruption in the country. Now, pervasive is already a very strong statement, right? There's a word for it, I can't just remember what it is, where you use two things to mean the same thing. It's like an underline, like, you know, pervasive already means it all pervasive, right? There's a word for that, I can't just think what it is, where you're sort of doubling up. You're doubling up, using another word. I can't remember what that word is, it's annoying me. Right, so all pervasive corruption. So somebody might say to me, you know, you're lucky, Alan, you don't live in my country because it's all, the corruption is pervasive. That means it's everywhere. Yeah. Okay, is everybody comfortable pervasive?
Yep.
We've all got a pervasive understanding of pervasive. And so just as Anjali did, I want you all to think of opportunities to reuse these words in subsequent conversations or on the group, because that reinforces your understanding. I can correct it if you get it slightly wrong, and it reinforces other people who are reading your notes, right? So make sure you're verbose. Don't be shy about saying things, asking questions, making comments in the group, right? Right, time for one or two more. We've done pervasive. I think we might have done this next word before. It's a lovely sounding word, although it's not a nice sounding concept. And we might have done it, but I haven't. I usually mark an asterisk against word I've done. I've started doing that. So I haven't gotten an asterisk against this word. Indictment. What does the word indictment mean? And this is a word, by the way, you hear, and Mona might know this because it's legal. And it's also used more in America than in the UK. Indictment. Indictment. And you don't spell it like it sounds. It is spelled like this. See that? So you'd think to pronounce it, you'd say indictment, indictment. But you don't say indictment, you say indictment. indict. It's almost like it should be D-I-G-H-T, right? Indict. But we pronounce this indictment. Anyone know what an indictment is? No? Great. I'm happy. It's not Schadenfreude. Indictment, the pronunciation is the same. A sign that a policy system society is bad or wrong. I would say that's a secondary definition, right? I think the standard definition is this one here, that's in law. This is the first thing people would think of when you hear the word indictment. It's a formal statement of accusing someone, right? So Ghislaine Maxwell, for example, it's all over the papers, has been indicted, right? Indicted, right? So in other words, she's been accused of crimes and misdemeanors. The charges on the indictment include murder and attempted murder, right? So Mona, you get this, right? This is your domain, right?
Yes, teacher.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's the standard thing. Now it's being used in a slightly broader context here. A sign that a system, policy system or society is bad or wrong, right? This seems to be a damning indictment of the government's education policy. So in other words, somebody is saying that something fundamental is wrong to do with government, some aspect of government or their policy, and it's an indictment. And they're using that word indictment there a bit like the word judgment. It's like an indictment. It's like a judgment against them. But it's really saying there's like a charge against them, you know, not formally, not legally. It's just being used. I hate to talk about politics in the current situation, you know, but let's talk about society of yesteryear, right? So somebody might say the behavior of Hitler, for example, in Second World War is a real indictment against fascism. So first of all, do you understand my statement? And do you understand how I've used indictment there and why indictment is an appropriate word? Yes, no?
Kind of.
I've got a kind of, and I've got one thumbs up. So let's look at some sentences. We won't leave it until we're all comfortable. It's an easy enough concept to get, right? They moved to quash the indictment on which she was brought to trial. So there's the legal definition that's coming, right? So she was indicted. Indicted doesn't mean she's in the wrong. Indicted means she's charged, right? So Mona was indicted and brought to trial, but she's not yet been proven guilty. And Alan came and wanted to quash the indictment because he knew that she was innocent. Yeah?
Yes.
So the indictment is the charge. The person could be guilty, they might not be guilty, but the indictment is I don't know what term we use in the UK for this. It's Americans that say indictment. The serial killer was found guilty and given an indictment for his crimes. So he was given some kind of judgment. The most unanswerable this tremendous indictment appears upon the evidence, the greater our probability that the evidence is incomplete. Whew, that's a complicated sentence. Hard to parse. Hard to parse. Do you know what parse means? The more unanswerable this tremendous indictment appears upon the evidence, the greater the probability that the evidence is incomplete. That's too hard a statement for us to parse and pick apart. I'm not even going to try, right? The jury has handed down an indictment for the criminal, right? So there the charge has been formalized, right? So he was indicted, right? Early in October, the convention brought forward its indictment of the 22 Girondists. I don't know what these guys are. A highway nuisance may be abated by the person, and we did abated recently, didn't we? A highway nuisance may be abated because we talked about in the context of ameliorated, and somebody asked me the difference between ameliorate and abate. A highway nuisance may be abated by any person and may be made the subject of an indictment at common law. I'm not enough of a legal beagle. We say legal beagle to describe somebody who's in law, and so I would describe Mona as a legal beagle, right? Doesn't mean they're a lawyer. It just means that they're involved in law in some shape or form, right? And somebody who's got a legal mindset, I would say they're a peculiar breed, right? And I'm not one of them. You need a very sharp mind and a very good memory to think like a lawyer, right?
Sir, are we done with this indictment word, or like are we still into sentence making of this?
I don't know. You tell me. Are you comfortable with it?
So, like if I use it like this, like you can indict me with all the false accusation that you want, but you can't prove them.
Yeah. Yeah. Good example. Yeah, exactly.
There is a word called quash. Just in the very first sentence, it has been used.
Yeah. Yeah.
What does this mean?
Okay. Good question. We'll make this the last word we'll do today, right? Quash. It's like crush, right? But quash means to take away, basically. Reject is invalid, especially by a legal procedure. His conviction was quashed on appeal. So Sud was indicted, but his conviction, yeah, that's what we would say in the UK. We would say conviction. Well, actually, conviction, if you're convicted, it means that you've been judged, you've been found guilty, right? But then in the court procedures, you can go to another court, you can go to a higher court and appeal the decision. And if your appeal is granted, then sometimes you might win your appeal, you might not. But if you do win your appeal, your conviction will be quashed. So it will be taken away and you're not guilty in any way. So that's what quashed means, or quash. Put an end to or suppress. A hospital executive quashed rumors that nursing staff will lose jobs. So there was a rumor going around that the nursing staff are going to be reduced, and an executive quashed the rumors, right? He stopped them. How would he do that? He would make an announcement and say, some people may have heard that we're going to reduce the nursing staff, but I can tell you categorically that's not the case. That is not the plan. So he quashed the rumor. Yes. This is, I promise this is the last one. It's in context with this. Mark Twain made a very witty comment. Somebody put about, a rumor went about that he had died. Right? Has anybody heard this? And he was famous for making really, really witty statements, right? And he said, rumors of my death have been greatly exaggerated, right? I didn't know it'd become a song. The title of the song comes from the story of when Mark Twain, at the height of his career, was touring in London and gave speeches to repay debts that had accumulated in America. A rumor circulated in the United States that he had gotten gravely sick and eventually died. Like most rumors, it got completely out of hand, and he wrote an open letter disputing his obituary, saying, "The reports of my death have been greatly exaggerated." Now, can you see that that's a very witty statement, right? Because reports of my death have been exaggerated, right? So he's either dead or he's not. And obviously, if he makes a statement like that, he's not dead, right? So, right.
Does it mean that Mark Twain has a lot of enemies, or like people want him dead in the context or something like that?
I don't know how the rumor started. I don't know. I can't answer that, right? But the rumor got started that he had died, right? And obviously it wasn't. And so he ended up quashing the rumor by making a very witty statement, which would have got published around the world. Mark Twain says, rumors of my death are greatly exaggerated, right? You know, because, you know, death is such a finite thing, it's such an absolute thing. So you can't exaggerate it, right? You cannot exaggerate it, right? Now somebody says Alan is sick, right? Oh yeah, he's really in a bad way. He's gonna die, right? And I say, no. It's just a sniffle, right? It's like Elham said at the beginning of the call. You know, have you got a runny nose? I didn't even know I had a runny nose until she mentioned it, right? So you could exaggerate a sickness, right? You can't exaggerate death because death is binary, right? You're either dead or you're alive, right?
I've got the context.
Yeah. So he very wittily quashed the rumor and, you know, became, some of his statements, well, maybe look at his statements someday. They're so witty. I actually went to his house when I lived in Connecticut. I went to his house. His house is in Hartford, and it's preserved. You can tour his house. And he wrote the books Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer. And both of those are children's books, but I would still recommend you read them if you haven't read them. Really lovely books, right?
Yeah.
Like a very innocent time in America, right? Adventures of Tom Sawyer. Right?
Did you say innocent time?
Innocent time, yeah.
What does it mean?
Innocent. No evil.
Mm-hmm.
Innocent like a child, you know. Innocent means doesn't know good or bad. So a young child is innocent. They don't really know what's good or evil. Adults
No, I know the meaning of the word, but
yeah.
because you said it was innocent time in the America,
yeah.
and of course it was the time of, you know, having slaves, and it is about it, you know.
Yeah, I know. That's true. That is astute commentary. Astute. Right, I like it. But the story doesn't pronounce anything on the rights and wrongs of slavery, right? It's just the way society was then. And it's a child's view, right? It's written from Tom Sawyer's point of view, isn't it? It's what he experienced. And
So you said it was an innocent time in America. You mean
No.
from the child's view,
yes,
from the writer's view?
in his
you mean?
experience. Exactly.
I see. I see.
Innocent time defined. See, this is my problem. If I say anything, I can't get away with anything. You guys pronounce you pounce. What did you mean? Did you not remember about slavery? Was that not a bad thing? Yes. Yeah. So let me just say, innocent time is definitely got a meaning. A more innocent time. Word reference. Let's look at this. Could you please explain the bold phrase "a more innocent time" means in the context? A more innocent time is a time when there was less intrigue, corruption, self-interest, partisanship, and more openness, honesty, etc. So you see how they use that there. Now that is specifically talking about a time in politics in America, right? But that's how they're using the expression, right? In one of those little asides that has no deep meaning, but hints at the writer or speaker's own view of the subject, as she goes on to say, in the 2020 election, the stakes are high. So in 2016, the mood was lighter than in this time around. If the 2020 election had thus far been completely devoid of memes, how can a year be more innocent than 2020? So is the author suggesting, this is the question, so is the author suggesting that there must be something dramatic that will happen in the rest of 2020? I won't go into it, but you know, that's just one example of how it was used in a specific scenario. So what does innocent mean in school? Anyway, I'm not getting very many hits there, but you can just take it from me. And an innocent time is used to describe usually a time in the past that seems on reflection to have been a time when there was less corruption.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I feel we covered a reasonable amount of ground there, boys and girls. It felt fun to me, so I hope it was fun for you guys.
Yes, totally.
That was
And
great. Thank you.
okay, and I will hold the class on Sunday, God willing. I know that time doesn't work for you, Ilham, but I'll still hold it at that earlier time because of my Chinese friends, okay? So I'm going to do a class at 8 o'clock on Sunday morning again. And then I don't know if I'll have a class next week. I might cancel next week because I'm super busy. So I might not have a class next week. I'll see. Okay, so those of you who are free, I'll see you on Sunday.
Yes, sir.
Otherwise, I'll see you all in the forum. Remember my encouragement, my exhortation to ask questions in the forum, make contributions. All right. That really consolidate your learning. And if you haven't read Huckleberry Finn or Tom Sawyer, I recommend you go read those books. It'll help you with your English. Although all of you, I will tell you, have pretty good English now. Yeah, it's true. That's not flattery. It's not false praise. It's genuine. Your English is all very good, guys. All right. I'll bid you good evening.
Thank you, teacher.
Bye now.
Bye.
Yes, sir.